Welcome to Outlast the Iron. I believe this is episode 6. Zach and Alex are on. Zach took about 9 minutes to try to figure out how 2020 technology works with the Zoom link. Couldn't deal with the passwords and then getting the audio going, getting the video going. And then what did you say to me, Zach? This is why you were what?
This is why I was a coal miner.
You can't deal with the modern world. So you gotta stick yourself in your glorious past.
Listen, you know what? I'm not confining to the modern world. It can confine to me.
That's an alpha mindset to have, is that you decide that this is how I want to live and these are the preconditions for living. Unfortunately, this doesn't really work with technology. Technology doesn't care how alpha you are. You actually need to follow the rules.
It actually kind of plays against you. I don't even think I'm using this mic. Well, because it actually plays against you in this way, at least okay, now I guess it's on your interpretation of how you see alpha, but most of the people that I see alpha win in the jungle. So that's my viewpoint of alpha. Well, a lot of people could see alpha as monetary amount, right?
Right.
But typically people who play well in the jungle don't play too well with technology.
Because they're playing in a different game. It's like if I tried to go play in an NFL game wearing a leather helmet with no face guard, I might get dominated by the guy who has an actual helmet on.
You'll get dominated with or without a regular helmet on.
So I need every advantage I can get. I'm not wearing that leather helmet,
And I think that's one thing that a lot of people like me don't get is the advantage that they need. They need to be around a well-meaning person who can just provide some layer of opportunity for them. That's kind of what I consider myself. If you look at my team, there are a lot of misfits and kind of a lot like me, where they didn't typically have the opportunity to maybe try their hand in what they're involved in now. But I saw opportunity in them because I saw certain characteristics that I was able to amplify within them and knew you can just kind of figure that other shit out on your way. But as long as you have specific values and characteristics, I know you can do well, because that's kind of how I did it.
And that's what's so important about a good teacher and a good mentor, is because the ability to go from average to good or average to great or good to great often has to do with identifying the things that actually matter, because there's 1,000 things that could plausibly matter for anything that you're trying to be an expert in. The very, very best people know that a majority of people are focusing on things that don't matter, and that the truly elite people are able to kind of clear their plate and say, actually, we just need to make sure that we're getting these 5 things right. And then the other 9.
Most people realize what things actually truly matter because they're too dictated off of other people's value systems.
Well, exactly. And you have to think about how these things get created, right? So you can think about like, I'm a NASM certified trainer. I don't tell people that much because it doesn't matter that much to me, but I got it about the time I created my Twitter account because, I was just eating a bunch of food. I wanted to make sure that people didn't think that I was just some slapdick who was just, eating Dominoes all the time and didn't know anything that he was talking about. So I studied for a few months, and I got the few letters on the end of my name, even though I don't follow any of the stuff in there. And if you think about how that information gets disseminated, right? They create a bunch of information. They test you on all the things that they create, but I can take that test knowing that most of it's not important. A lot of it's wrong. This just wouldn't be the stuff that I would prioritize teaching somebody. And if somebody didn't know, they would just look at it and they would say, well, you need to make sure that you get 70 out of these 100 things right. Whereas if you look at it, you're like, actually 90 out of 100 of them are irrelevant, and 5 out of the 10 that aren't really that important to focus on right now. So I just need to make sure I can find people who can get these 5 things right. And then that's going to be a lot cleaner to follow, because instead of following 70 rules, I just have to follow 5. But I need to really follow them. I can't kind of follow them. And
it's like when I develop friendships, it's like my number one thing with Iron Valley Barbell is loyalty. So you just have to be loyal to a fault. Like you have to be loyal to the vision, to the brand, to what we're doing. Every good cult's this way. Every good cult knows that loyalty has to be the number one thing. So I create loyalty within my team. When my team's loyal to me, it allows me a ton of empathy when they fuck up. My guys are between 20. When I got them, Jeremy was 19, Dylan was 22, 23. 21, maybe 22. So like 22, I think. So these guys are younger, and now, they're matured a little bit more because they've been in my system a little bit longer. But with that being said, where's a bunch of kids trying to run a business, essentially? I was 23. These guys were younger. It's like, we're all basically just trying to try our hand at something that I have a vision for. So problems are bound to exist. So I knew that if I could just surround myself with guys who are loyal, not only could I give them empathy and forgiveness when they fuck up, but they could return the favor. Because it's like, I'm still working and I'm still growing. So I still need a layer of empathy and forgiveness of myself as I'm leading this ship. Because this is still brand new for me. I mean, I'm 4 years in now, but 5 years working for myself. But relatively, this is new for me.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe this could lead into, one of the topics that we wanted to get into is emotional regulation. And over the course of your entire day, that emotional regulation is going to be required if you want to be the leader that you want to be, especially around your team if they're fucking up, which is going to inevitably happen if you're around people for a long enough period of time. But then you're also spending some of your time online where you're dealing with people who are trying to get in your head, and you can't necessarily tell them everything that you're thinking all the time. And then you're driving, and sometimes people are going to cut you off, and then you need to, or not let you into Eagle Creek Park. And you need to figure out how you can kind of mask this primal ape fighting. What's that?
You just listed all my biggest problems.
Yeah, I know. I spent a couple of weeks with you. I kind of know what's up, And so, and I also know the mindset that you take, right? Because if you're the type of guy who's like, I could take those gorillas, like you're the type of person who will naturally, most people like this, you're not actually this type of person, but most people who are of that mindset will naturally just try to overpower everything. And that's the one tool that they've shaped through their teenage years. That's it's a blunted object that they take to every job that they do. And when it doesn't work well, typically the adjustment is like, use the blunted object harder. It's not try to sharpen your sword, try to look for a different angle.
And that was me, though. That was a great perspective, because that was me for many years. I still possess a lot of those same traits and qualities, but unfortunately I'm wise enough to put myself around people similar to you who practice, hey, sharpen your tool. You still use a blunt object yourself. Like, you still have a lot of the same character. There's a reason why you and I are good friends, right?
Oh, yeah.
You possess a lot of the same characteristics of fighting gorillas that I do. I just might be a little bit more outward about it and be able to grow a better beard. Where
does that mean you're better? Because the gorilla could hold on to that now. That means they got leverage on you.
Right, too. And my hair. So it's just like, I'm actually at a strategic disadvantage, 100% with my current lifestyle and physique that I'm possessing, my attributes, right? So it's interesting you say that, though, because I'm wise enough to put myself around people. I'm like, the real world doesn't always work the way I want it to, and I just try to punch it in the face all the time. So how is this guy?
I hate when that happens, but that's just the way it is.
So how is this guy able to communicate well enough, surround myself with people like you and other people like you who kind of, it seems as if to me like a lot of people who exist within the sales world as well exist within the corporate settings know how to navigate those spaces better than I do. So people like Ashley, my wife, she does so good with customer relations and sales, and she's kind of like leading. I'm trying to get her, I've been trying to get her to quit her job, but I finally get her to the point where hopefully this next few weeks she's about done. She's down to 1 day a week, because we're bringing her over full time to IVB. And I just know that if I can utilize her, she's an asset to me. She can make us a ton of money, my business, our business, a ton of money if she has her hands in it more, because I've been around her enough to know that, man, you're really good at handling people, better than me most of the time. So I need you in this particular position. So I'm wise enough to put the people in my life who can wear off on me. But if I still don't possess some of this dog eat dog mentality, that's what the leader still needs, is some of that. So I have this dog eat dog mentality, but I also surround myself with people who I'm like, you're better in this realm. So I'm going to pull myself back, allow you to handle this specific job. It's like the Andrew Carnegie thing, your beast.
Dale Carnegie. Actually, it could be Andrew too. Andrew made a lot more money than Dale
Carnegie,
did.
Whichever one it was. So you surround yourself with these powerhouse of people, right? And I put these people around me. I'm like, okay, you possess these skills and these attributes. I want you to make sure that you communicate to people in that realm. And I'm going to stay in my vein. And every year I get a little closer. And when I feel myself operating outside of my vein, I can feel it. I'm like, ooh, I shouldn't be here. Like, I know enough about it. I know enough about the topic to not sound like an idiot. But I shouldn't be operating too long in here, because I don't know enough about the topic. So I'm going to bring somebody else in.
Yeah.
And what it ends up doing at the end of the day, it provides opportunity for other people so they excel. And
Yeah.
on top of that, it makes me seem smarter and more wiser because I surround myself with the people who
It's
understand
always
more.
good to seem more wiser. So, and that's actually really interesting because it's something that I noticed when I was working at Google, where, if you're growing up in West Virginia or somewhere similar, particularly like a working class community, a lot of times you're going to be judged by your ability to physically dominate other people in your vicinity. And that's how people know you. That's the reputation that you wanted to create for yourself. That's the legend that you wanted to create for yourself is people knowing how strong and tough you are, and how you'll run through a wall or break down a wall if it needs to be broken down to get what you want. Nothing's going to get in your way. But if you end up spending time with kids who grow up in like upper middle class families, this is very much not a trait that most of them will try to instill in their kids, and the detractors will say, yeah, it's because they're soft. And like, if you don't instill these values in your kids, they're going to be soft. And that is an absolute downside in many cases when an upper middle class upbringing shapes an individual. But the other side is these kids tend to be able to navigate bureaucracies a little bit better. They tend to be able to navigate human organizations a little bit better because they don't openly express these traits of dominance as frequently. They don't threaten people as much. They're able to, and you would define it as probably being a little bit shisty, right? Oh, you're not open and forthright with your intentions.
Well,
You're not.
actually, it's they do dominate. That's the thing, though. They do dominate,
Exactly.
and they do manipulate, and they do
Yeah.
get the outcomes they want.
Right.
They just do it with a cleaner slate than I can possibly do it because they have a more technically savvy way to doing it. I call it shiesty, manipulative.
Yes.
100%. They have, but it's not that it's always even bad. Because like there's times where, I mean, there's a lot of environments that I'm in, especially as like a leader, and when I'm perceived that in the particular space that I'm in, is I completely control my environments and the rooms that I'm in. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, if I want to give away control, I give it away. But I can very easily maintain the direction of the room that I'm in can take, especially if I have just a little bit of influence.
Right.
So I can manipulate my room and my environment, like for Iron Rally Barbell. Like there's a reason why Saturday leg days are so hype. I created them. I manipulated that environment. So when you walk in on Saturday leg day, a guy who flies all the way from San Francisco is going to deadlift over 500 pounds. I manipulated that environment.
Like any guy from San Francisco is going to come in.
Any guy, really.
Anybody can do it.
6'5" can deadlift 500. Yes, 100%.
That's a guarantee. That's a Zach Homol guarantee.
Yeah, you put that on the sticker.
You will deadlift 500 pounds in 6 months, even if you've never done it before. No, you will not.
Well, you know what? It depends. That's the thing. It really depends. And here's why. 500 pounds is an incredible feat of strength. When you deadlifted 500 pounds, I thought it was absolutely amazing because you in particular are one of my favorite people ever to work out with because you understand cues really well. You pick up on things real well. You're eager to learn. But on top of that is you do everything right. You listen to your body. You eat healthy. Your energy input and output is just right on tack. Everything works out real well for you. So to see you deadlift 500 pounds at fucking 0% body fat and be able to run a sub 6 minute mile to me is badass. However, I know a lot of guys in the coal mine who could deadlift 500 within 3 to 6 months. No problem. Never working out straight off the couch because they're just strong from working. Guys, roofing, same deal. Like I remember my dad deadlifted 500 years and years and years ago when I was working with him. And out of nowhere, like whatever, fucking had him because I tried to lift up these sheets of minnow. I couldn't pick them up. And it was a block pull, but he did 500 and just literally no form, nothing, but pulled 500. So
no form. He's just like, oh, that's not good.
Because he'd been hiking shingles up ladders.
No, I get that. But that's a lot to be like man strong with. I would kind of think that like people who would do, maybe they could work up to it in 3 to 6 months. I would think that if you took a strong dude who just lifted a bunch of crap and just put him on a barbell and he'd never deadlifted before, I think that guy would struggle to get 400 pounds. But I think he could probably gain 100 pounds pretty quick.
Yes, I would say most guys, 100%. I would say most guys 100% would do that. Into some capacity. It really depends on your activity levels. Mm-hmm. Like I mean, even at the end of the day, it's just like runners. Okay, runners. It's like while runners are typically weak, if I just reapproach their energy outputs, they get pretty strong relatively quick because their legs are relatively strong. They
They're
just have to use,
athletes.
yes, they're athletes. They just have to use the rest of their body. Like
Hmm.
they have to, like the deadlift is not just legs and lower back. Like it's also understanding lat engagement. It's also
Hmm.
understanding posture, how to maintain position. You know, not a lot of people get squirmy when the weights get heavy. You ever see people get stuck on their weights? They start moving their body around all the time. Like, oh, you're squirming, you
Because they're
sissy.
sissies.
Yes, they're sissies. This dude I'm training right now, his name's Danny. He's the fucking dopest. Great wrestler, owns a pizza shop in town, from New York, Italian cat. So just like super just portrays what that would
Oh
be,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Super cool dude, super hard ass dude, man. High energy levels all the fucking time. He was squirming under the bar the other day. I said, Danny, never squirm, bro. Never be a sissy under the barbell. But squirming's no good. Squirming's actually when you get yourself hurt, you know? So when that weight gets heavy, just almost think in your mind, stop. Just
Yeah.
keep pulling or pushing in the position that I'm in. Just keep going. Don't change anything on your top sets. People get to the top sets, like, I'm going to move my feet out a little wider. I'm like, why? You've been doing it the same way the whole time. Keep doing it the way that you know is going to work. Yeah, but it's going to be a bigger base for me. I'm like, you're an idiot, dude. You just doing it. That's where your leverages are intact, and that's where you can do your best. But that's funny. Most people think they need a different blueprint when they get towards the end, right? That end result. Like I was talking about this. Maybe it was to you, or maybe it was a different friend who played baseball. But most people, I like to consider it like a baseball player. And you know, you'll go through droughts when you're hitting the ball. You
Mhm.
know this. A lot of it's mental and
Yeah.
psychology. It's like you just can't hit the ball. So guys, what do I gotta do? I gotta do something different. I gotta do something. The last thing you would do in a baseball game is be like, fuck it, I'm switch hitting. Turn over and try to start batting lefty.
You might get like people in the depths of depression of a slump might consider doing something like that, but that's
Yes,
hilarious. Yeah.
but most people think they need to make a super dramatic change. So I'm like, hey, just lift your elbow. Just lift your elbow a little bit. Hey, just keep your eye on the ball. You don't really have to change your stance. You just gotta watch the ball a little better. And when you watch the ball a little better, you're gonna hit it. And so it's just like it's all often the small changes that sets us up for real major results. I've been around a lot of millionaires, and I've been around a lot of homeless people who basically are people who have no money, deprived economy in West Virginia and even on the east side of Indy here, and even the community that I'm involved with now. So I get to see a little bit of both. And I'm just like, you're just 2 steps away from going from living on your mom's couch to being a millionaire. And that millionaire is just 2 choices away from living on his mom's couch. It's just like,
Exactly. And I actually had an argument with my dad about this because he and I disagree on, we see eye to eye on a lot of things, but we disagree on a lot of things too. Because he didn't really play sports growing up. And so he's like a much more, like he's more of a nerdy type guy where he got better grades than me in school. He went to a top law school. He's been a lawyer for, the last 40 something years. But he's also like, he's born in 1950 and he grew up in a time of tremendous prosperity in the United States. And so he's always looking at me saying, well, you're extremely intense. And with that intensity, there's downsides, right? You're more aggressive in how you approach different relationships. I'm more confrontational. If he says something that I think is bullshit, I'll tell him, and I'll tell him exactly why. And it's not like, it's not like there's physical fighting or anything like that, but I'm just very clear. Like, this is why I disagree with what you're saying. This is why I think your approach is wrong. This is why I think X, Y, and Z. Um, and he just looks at me and he's like, he thinks that I have so much margin for error because he sees the way I put effort in the gym. He sees what I look like physically. He knows how much money I'm making, approximately every year. And in his mind, he's just like, well, you're in the upper echelon of income. It's like, why are you worrying about all these things? And I told him yesterday, it's like, look, I understand that I'm in a different position than most people right now, but I also understand that there's only a small amount of things that separate me from someone who's not in my position. And it's not like I've made so much money where I can live off of my capital and I'm impenetrable. It's like, I need to make sure that this machine runs a certain way. If it stops running a certain way and there's a few choke points that can very easily make it stop running that certain way, I'm just like the next guy. And it's
yeah,
hard for people to imagine because they look at me and they know I'm physically strong. I can speak well, look good doing it. But I'm like, I'm one bad car accident away from being worse than the next guy, right? Like it's so easy.
It doesn't even have to be something that crazy. It can be something
yeah,
very small too. It can just be like, okay, it's a job. Okay, it's gonna be this simple. And this is why it probably won't happen to you. One
hope
or
so.
a couple of different things. Your mindset development. So it's like you're aware of
Yep.
yourself, your surroundings, and you have, from what I could see, at least myself, I can speak for me as a friend. You have good people speaking into your life. So it's like, though this is one way it could happen, right? Let's say you lose your current job that you're at right now. And as you lose a job, it's like the economy is kind of all goofy and shit. And it's like, it's kind of hard to get anywhere else. And you're not finding, there's this job I could get here, but it's more hours. And I don't want to work that many hours. And yeah, it's 6 figures, but I don't want to do that. And let's say you kind of cross a couple of those things off. Next thing you know, it's 6-8 months. You're like, dang, I'm pulling out all my savings. I'm still living the same lifestyle. Next thing you know, you start getting down yourself. Maybe I'm not good enough to get to the job that I thought I was. Then you start possessing those self-sabotage thoughts. Next thing you know, 2 years later, you're like, I fucking lost everything. It's like, dude, I watched my uncle go. And the next thing you know, when you start surrounding yourself with like 8 abstinence of workplace and actually pushing your mind forward, when you're not getting better, you start to retract and get worse, and self-confidence down. So anxiety is when you think about a topic long enough and actually never apply action to it. So always just thinking about, I need to work, I need to do this, and you're never doing it, you lose self-confidence. The less confident you are in yourself, the more anxiety that you have. So and I watched that happen with my uncles and my mom, even in job losses and stuff. And I watched them like go being real good. Like I watched my uncle make 6 figures in the early 2000s to overdose on drugs and die. Like I watched him go from killing it to not having a job for 5-6 years, having all these issues go on, had to have his colon removed, just all these different issues, but just straight downhill after the job. He'd always partied and, did a little bit of stuff, but as soon as that, his self-confidence just plummeted. And the next, I saw him go from literally being the figure in our family, like everyone looked up to him because financially he's good, yet all the friends, everyone enjoyed being around him, to overdosing and dying on drugs 10 years later. So it's just like, I watched these happen more times than once in my life. And I can always point it out. It's just like, it's a confidence thing, man. It's just like, we get overwhelmed with anxiety and these anxious energies because we feel like we can't do things because we are in this particular situation that we're in. And it's crazy. It can happen to anybody. But what I realized in all these particular people's lives is they didn't have real friends speaking into their life. And that's why I'm so big on community and culture, is because I need people who I trust to speak into me. I need to say, I'm the most receptive person. When I come home and my wife's like, hey, I caught some shit here and how you're portraying yourself here, I just want to kind of say, this is how I'm seeing it from the outside looking in. And I might not be the only person who sees that personality trait, and you might not be the best.
Don't be a dick talk, the thrice monthly, don't be a dick talk.
I'm like, yeah, that could be an issue. I don't get defensive because she means well. Like my wife.
And so do you in most ways too. It's just the way it would come off, right?
Exactly. And I mean well too, that just comes off hard. But like if you came to me like, Zach, man, I'm seeing this, like if there was an overwhelming thing in our relationship, they're like, Zach, I can't do this. I'm like, hey, I gotta recognize, like I had a friend who I couldn't say certain things in front of him because he didn't like how that was brought up some trauma in his life. So I just avoid saying those words and those things in front of him. It's just like, it's just like, you got to learn how to navigate in your space and have people to speak into you, man. And that's a big problem with the world right now. Everybody thinks they've already made it and they've already reached this level of emotional and spiritual and intelligence that they can't have anyone speak into them. And often it's the arrogancy, and you'll have the less times good people speak into you, the more blind spots you're going to have as life goes on.
That's true.
Next, you're a 7-year-old bitter old fuck, and you're just cynical and hate the world.
Yeah, which a lot of people are as they get older. And what's really interesting when you talk about all these things, and to our earlier topic about emotional regulation, is I think one of the reasons that I feel more strongly positioned against these negative things than the next guy who's in my situation, even though I acknowledge the fact that I'm vulnerable just like the next guy, is I can plot out pain cycles, right? So just like in my training, if you're writing me training or if I'm writing my own training, I know which segments of my training are going to be incredibly challenging, right? So I know that if I'm going to be doing intervals before I'm going to be doing deadlifts, I know that if I'm doing 5 interval runs, the first one's not going to be hard because I don't structure my first interval to be hard. The second one's also not going to be hard. It's really only the third, the fourth, and the fifth interval of my 5 that are going to be hard. And then in my normal work, if I'm doing 5 working sets of deadlifts, it's really only like the last 2 sets that are going to be like really, really taxing. They're all going to be challenging, but they're not going to require me to dig deep. And so when I'm looking at my workout, I know, okay, this point I'm going to need to dig real deep. And then that point I'm going to need to dig real deep. And then that point I'm going to dig real deep. But there's only maybe a few times in a workout where you're going to be digging real deep. Your body just can't be digging deep all the time. And if you simply know how to dig deep a few times, you're going to do a lot better than the guy who never can, which most people can't. But the way this translates into interpersonal issues or the mindset that's required to be successful in life is when you realize that training has pain curves, that these 3 points are going to be hard, you also realize that anything that you approach is going to have pain curves. So say for a second, I was on my own and I wasn't making the money I was making for my main job, and I was reliant on everything that I'm doing in the fitness space, and if, maybe some days I'm not going to sell any content, right? And I'm just going to wear 0, let's sell nothing. And that, if I can forecast what that's going to be like, okay, Alex, there's a 30-day month. 3 of those 30 days are going to be terrible. You know this, right? And so what's this likely to make you do? When you have a bad day, you're likely to do A, B, and C. And then a way you can avoid doing those bad things, which makes the problem compound, is you can forget that it happened, basically. Is so the way that I've looked at life, and we've talked about this many times before, is positive things will spiral in a positive direction and negative things will spiral in a negative direction. And the reason they'll spiral in a negative direction is because of the adjustments you make after losing. The adjustments you make are maladaptive, and they allow that losing to compound. And so one of the reasons you allow losing to compound is because you allow your mindset to change. And the way you can keep your mindset rigid so it doesn't change and doesn't compound those losses is what I found: numb yourself to the pain, because you're feeling pain of underperforming in a certain day or even certain week, certain month. And that's painful. It hurts. It hurts. And so the natural thing that people do in response to pain is acquiesce to it, right? Like, well, it hurts. And so I'm going to drink this beer. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to spend this money. I'm going to go on this trip. I'm going to do this thing. And sometimes it helps. And if you have good intuition, then you know how to get yourself back on track. But the reality is, just like you talked about people squirming under the bar when the weight gets tough, when life gets tough, most people squirm at life, and that puts them at a position to ensure that the worst things have the best chance of happening to them, is they're squirming under the pressure of life. And the way that you don't squirm under the pressure of life is just like you said, you keep your position, you don't move. That's the same thing that you can do with a mindset, is that's how you regulate your emotions, is you don't allow them to move in spite of all of the chaos that's going on around you.
That's it. It's so hard to get your emotions not to move because they're very fleeting, thoughts especially. So like comparing thoughts to emotions. So I've talked about this on metacognition. So the idea of thinking about the thoughts that we're thinking about. In order to do this, you have metacognition knowledge, which is the ability to know that us as human beings possess the knowledge to think about the own thoughts that we have. And there's metacognition regulation, which means that we actually possess the skill sets to think about the thoughts we have, to manipulate the environment that we're searching for. So ideally, in order to make this work effectively, we have to remove ourselves from chaotic environments. And I think people don't do this enough. They just allow these things to spiral, like you said, rather than backing up. So like when I can't get to my breath, so it's like when I feel my anger coming on or anxious energy coming on, and I'm just like even right before I get on the podcast still, I've done hundreds of these. I still get nervous. Like there's this little layer of nerve that comes up in me. And here's one reason why. I know it's supposed to be public speaking. I've done it multiple times, 3 or 4 times now, done very well each time. And every time I'm on the stage, I'm more nervous than when I used to box.
Interesting.
Just all the way up to here.
Yes.
Even when I did both the weddings I did.
Interesting.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Even the one in the middle of the mountains, when there's 6 people there, I get this.
Right.
I know it's, for me, I parallel it with, it's like, I'm supposed to be doing this. No
Right.
wonder I feel so much anxiety right now. And that's why I'm
Right.
so gravitated towards doing it. And that's also another reason why I'm not as always inspired to lift heavy as I used to all the time, because it doesn't really make me nervous. I'm just, I deadlift 600 any day of the week, really.
Right.
So it's just like, but I'm searching for this. But whenever I can't come to my breath, I pause and I start to use logic. So
Yeah.
like right before each of those, like, so the weddings, I'm just a very easy one. So before my buddy Brad's wedding, well, come to find out, the bride's family is pastors, and
Hmm.
I'm the one doing the wedding. So it's like, oh, I know there's gonna be some judgment. Immediately, this tattooed up hippie,
Right.
ass cat at the beginning. So it's just like I immediately started pairing. What are these people going to be judging me from? And I
Right.
started thinking about the things they're going to say about me. And then I have this issue with old middle-aged men. I've discussed
Yes.
this on the podcast and you that just because I had a bad upbringing with father figures, that I had this sour taste in my mouth, a chip on my shoulder for middle-aged men. And that's kind of the age of these guys who'd be judging me. So all this stuff started to spiral right before I did my buddy's wedding. I paused and I said, what's true? What's true in this situation? What's true is I'm prepared. What's
Hmm.
true is I practiced. What's true is Brad and Emily chose me to officiate their wedding. They
Hmm.
chose me. They obviously saw something in me. That's why they wanted me up here. So I
Hmm.
go back and I start to use actual logic. I'm like, well, why do I feel this anxious energy? I feel this anxious energy because I'm feeling that I already have this chip on my shoulder for middle-aged men, because I had issues with
Yeah.
father figures growing up.
Hmm.
Makes sense why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling right now. I don't have to feel that way because that's not actually true about me anymore.
Right.
And I can then do the job that I have to do.
Right.
But
So,
in order for me to do that, though, I had to retract. I went
right.
to the restroom, took a pee, just allowed myself time to actually process through these emotions. I actually like allowed myself to feel like, oh, okay, I understand I'm feeling this now. Don't act like you're not feeling it. You're feeling it. But how can you subside it? How can you push it
Yeah.
down, finish it, get it smaller? It's not that I'm sweeping things under the rug. I'm acknowledging that that's happened and I'm still working through it. So
Hmm.
with the fact that I've acknowledged that and I'm real about like my weakness, which is I can't lock out my bench press anymore, tricep work, right? I have a hard time communicating in environments like this because of my past trauma. I can then work through it in order to perform.
Yeah. What's so interesting is, I don't know that we've talked about this before, but when I played baseball, I felt the same way. And, in spite of the fact that I never came off this way, I felt like a fish out of water a lot of times, playing defense. Hitting was felt more natural to me, even though people thought I was a better defender than hitter. But, playing defense when you're in front of thousands of people, and like, you can very easily make one mistake that just makes you individually look terrible, which is the thing that baseball does really well relative to other team sports, is it can isolate individuals and showcase their mistakes in front of a lot of people a lot more easily. And so that's kind of why people have certain mindsets, like really cocky people tend to do better at baseball, because they're not worried about what other people are going to judge them for. And I noticed that when I was playing, that you could feel this anxiety come up in you. And if it ever like rose above your neck and got to your head, you couldn't play. And so I knew that as I
It
could,
does. It starts rising. It's like I got to
yes,
stop it right here.
exactly. That's exact. And like literally, Zach and I have never talked about this before in terms of how our bodies are physiologically responding to anxiety. It responds the same way. So chances are, like, the human body responds this way. That's how bro science works.
Chances are we know your body better than you.
Right. And so when I'm feeling this anxiety creep up inside me, I'm overriding it. I'm trying to push it down. Now, what I would do when I was playing baseball is different, because the way that I could push it down, I couldn't push it down through logic, right? I had to push it down through anti-logic. And the anti-logic that I used was, I'm the best player ever, which is obviously not true. But if I could convince myself of that being true, then everything worked in coordination a little bit better. And it was much easier for me to have that as my emotional foundation to allow me to play well. But, and this is actually how I approach a lot of situations. So if I'm public speaking, I'm going to be a little bit nervous too. But then once I know, I just need to get in my rhythm. Once I'm in my rhythm, if I can stave off this anxiety enough to get me in my rhythm, then I stop thinking about it and I'm on track and I don't have to worry about other things. And so it's like a battle to manage this anxiety from overcoming me so I can perform. And what's really interesting is, if you come to think about how we approach the world relative to others, neither of us vote. We're not, exactly political people, but we see a lot of mindsets that are becoming popular in society, sissy mindsets, right? And the way you can kind of look at that is, some people are taught that they're perfect the way they are. But the reality is, from going through all the things that we've gone through in life, whether it's boxing, whether it's, like officiating weddings, whether it's playing, professional sports, whether it's deadlifting 700 pounds, that if you take that mindset to any of those events, you can't do it. And so all of your victories are shaped by managing your natural impulses, at least to a certain extent. And yes, you need to, particularly when from an interpersonal relationship standpoint, you can't manage your emotions out of existence all of the time if you want to have a happy, successful life. But you can't do it none of the time if you want to have a happy and successful life. And
100%.
if you believe that you're just perfect the way you are, and you're just enough, and I'm enough, and I'm what I do is I'm a valuable person. It's like, only if you do these certain things, right? At least in my experience, is I'm only a valuable person if I get these certain things right. If I get them right, I'm a valuable person. But if I'm not, I lose, and I'm not valuable. And so, I think the fact that a lot of people lack this experience, they can't see it from the angle that we're seeing it. It's like, no, there's a very specific way that works, and all the other ways don't work.
Right. I like to look at each new experience, like pivotal experiences, bigger ones like the wedding, whatever it might be, like a fight. So while my previous fights and training has relatively prepared me for this fight, nothing matters what I did before. Short-term memory loss. Even if I won my last fight, even if I had a good training cycle before this fight, when I come up, the only thing that matters is how I perform on fight day.
Mm-hmm.
I have to raise my expectations in order to perform how I want to. So even though I practiced the speech 1,000 times, even though Brad and Emily wanted me to officiate their wedding, I still had to show up and fight. I still had to show up and accomplish my job. So what I like to do each and every time is start with a new clean slate. No matter if I did great, and this is how I got so great at powerlifting. I didn't just say, oh, I just squat 600s, I'm so great for it. I didn't give a fuck. Short-term memory loss. I threw it away. The next week, 635. Why 35 pounds? Why not? It's just like, that's how my mind works. I went from 635 to a 700-pound squat in 1 week. Literally 1 week, 65 pounds. How'd you do it, Zach? I just did it. I put it on the barbell and I went down, I came back up because that was the next jump for me. So doing this short-term memory loss has done a couple things for me. I think it might bring me a little bit more anxious energy to the fight each time, because it's like I forgot what I did last time. But it also really teaches me how to be in that moment, like how to seize that particular moment, because that's the moment that matters the most, is the present moment that we're in. And I think so many people spend a little bit too much time focusing on their wins, and way too many, even more people spend too much time focusing on their losses.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I speak to somebody, and I believe you possess this very similar quality, and when we're around each other, we could write down a booklet, 150-page booklet of ideas that could make everybody $1 million. Like, we're just idea after idea after idea after idea. There's not a bad one. It just keeps coming. So I do this for people. I just give them ideas like, man, Zach, I want to open, like, I do this mentorship program, and I have guys who want to open gyms and shit. And I just lay it out. Game plan. To the dollar amount, to getting their LLCs, to writing their shit off. I just lay it out. And what ends up happening a lot of times is when you're able to lay out all this information for somebody, they get overwhelmed in the moment. Oh yeah. Oh, I wanted this, but now I don't know. Now it's actually here for me to take.
Yeah.
I don't know. And it's just like, then they start looking like, oh, it's there, but actually I can't get my LLC because I don't have $100. I got $100. I'll pay for it. Well, right. I can't do that because then I got to quit my current job that I'm working. No worries. You quit. I'll front you $3,000 this next 2 months.
Right.
Well, and it's just like, it's one thing after another, even though I create solutions. I'm struggling solutions. Like, hey, here's the solution to this problem.
Right.
Where they still look back at the things that they're not good at, or the reasons why they're not able to do it. So then you create solutions for that's why they can, and then they'll find more reasons as why they can't.
Right. Why? But I have an answer for that. And I have an answer for that from analyzing myself, because, I try to put myself in a position to produce as much as I can with as little effort as I can because I want to be efficient, but I want to. And so the way I approach life is very similarly like to the way I would approach sports, is like, I want to figure out how to get the most out of myself. And so what I would notice is when there were things that I wanted to do, I'm not really a procrastinator, but I do have maybe some like desires for procrastination. Right. And when I experience those, I kind of think, oh, well, other people probably experience this like 10 times more. And then when I started to realize the way I would approach life, I think a lot of it was probably the fact that I stayed working at Google as long as I did without, trying to do my own thing or trying to just go off and join a startup, is I realized that what I was doing was rationalizing energy conservation. And I think a lot of people don't work out, obviously, because they're lazy and it's an energy conservation strategy, right? Which makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint because humans didn't have access to food 24/7. And so maybe it would make sense to conserve energy if you don't really need to use it. But the way people embark on emotionally intensive endeavors is also an energy saving strategy. That's exactly what it is. So the same reason that somebody's going to tell you, oh, I don't have $100, or oh, I can't do this, or oh, I can't do that. It's just like, oh, my elbow's hurting. That's the same thing. It is an energy conservation excuse. And once you realize that it's an energy conservation excuse and you're honest with yourself about that, and you say, okay, well, in this situation, I'm likely to make an excuse to try to conserve energy. I just need to power through it because that's just my brain telling me to be lazy, and it's going to be wrong and it's going to change its mind. I just need to get these things out of the way.
But people are far more intrigued to want to take the advice of energy conservation, in your opinion, rather than the other approach. And here's my meaning behind it. It only takes one doctor to tell a guy he has bad knees for a guy to believe he has bad knees. He won't even try. I know so many people who one doctor said they had a bad knee. Oh man, when you're 50, you're probably gonna need a knee replacement. I've heard that 30-year-old guys come in my gym and say, yeah, my doctor said, with what I've done, where my knees are, I'm probably gonna need a new one by 50. And I'm just like, fuck your doctor. Fuck when you're 50. I said, you're going to be in the best motherfucking shape when you're 50. I said, when you're 50, you're going to be running circles around your doctor who's just prescribing everybody fucking pills and Percocets and Vicodin because their knees hurt. I said, you ain't got to live that. I said, he's just part of your team. And if he's not giving you the information you want to need, you need a new doctor to be part of your team. Like you texted me a couple weeks ago. Yeah, my doctor said I had a bunch of hairline fractures in my spine. What do you think about it? I said, fuck your doctor. Don't give a fuck. How do you feel? I feel great. Well, fuck him then. It's just like everyone's looking for reasons to say why you shouldn't or why you can't, why this. Well, it is there. Well, the human body, bro, you've been deadlifting 500 playing professional sports. You think that thing's just going to be, oh, it's perfect. It's just
right. Well, that's why I was hesitant to get an X-ray. Well, I don't need to see that.
The body is supposed to hurt. Like it's part of existence. But everyone's fucking sissies. They can't take a little bit of pain. Every time something, a little discomfort happens in their life, they're like, better not do it. Doc said I could get myself hurt. What's on the other side? Sit on the fucking couch, eat potato chips, get diabetes, can't play with your grandkids? Dude, let your fucking knees hurt, you sissy. It's okay. At least you'll be able to play with the kids. At least you'll be able to play with the grandkids. It's just like people don't think this through. They listen to one person who has 6 more years of education or 10 more years of education. I'm like, that must be the way. And I hear it all the time. And why I'm so passionate about it is because I have guys who come to me, I'm like, my back don't hurt no more when I squat and deadlift. Had a message the other day. Zach, first time I was able to play with my kids this way, bro, in years. Thank you. I'm like, boom. Same dude. Yeah. My fuck said I'm gonna need a new hip replacement. You need a new hip replacement because you're 130 pounds overweight, okay? You don't need a hip replacement because you have bad hips. You need a hip replacement because you have big belly.
Because you got a bad body. Yeah. Well, it's interesting, and a lot of people don't realize that doctors, as well as people in any other sales role, because you have to realize that every interaction is structured to direct you towards something that somebody else can benefit from, right? And so doctors are becoming, in the United States, closer to car mechanics. They'll tell, like, everything is wrong with your car. Or your car is not perfect. You drove it off the lot. It's been off the lot for 3 years. There's a lot of things that could be wrong with it.
Every time you buy them pills from the doctor, they're just like, they're getting paid for it. There's a reason why these drug reps come in and fucking get your doctors Starbucks every day, fucking $400 lunches. Like, dude, my mom works for a doctor's company.
They still do that? I thought that became illegal. I know they did it like 20 years ago. I didn't know that they were still doing
Hell
this.
yeah, they're still doing it. Drug reps are always bringing in lunch. My mom gets lunch carried in 2 or 3 times a week. They know her orders. She's like, oh, I'm eating healthy, so I'm eating this, this, and this. It's like, no worries. Oh, you don't want mochas no more for your Starbucks? Oh, we'll get you black coffee. Dude, 3 or 4 times a week. All these drug reps are fighting to get the doctor's attention, so they'll prescribe his pills more. And we're fucking allowing it. They're hustling drugs, literally.
That's so bad.
They're getting paid by insurance companies to hustle drugs into your body, and you're like, "What's normal, Zach? It's good for me. That's what it's supposed to be."
It's so nuts.
Oh, I'm 50. I'm supposed to be on this many pills. Most people think when they hit 50, they're supposed to be on blood thinners. They're supposed to be on this. They're supposed to be this. I'm like,
yeah.
how about just quit eating ice cream? Let's try that first. But that's the thing. We don't even attempt to try that first. Doctors aren't educated enough to even make these suggestions. They're not educated enough to make these suggestions because they don't go through the schooling that they need in order to have proper nutrition. So it's like we're just caught up in this big drug scandal. It's just this marketing drug scandal that was created, right? And then you go on anytime you're watching TV. I know you don't watch a lot of TV, but anytime TV pops on, bro, and there's commercials, and the whole commercial, they hit your emotion. What they do in the commercials, oh, look at Bob playing with his kids and grandkids, and he got a hot wife, even though, like, what the fuck? How's this doing? But he actually is super depressed. But as soon as we gave him this medication that might cause liver failure, brain cancer, 16 tumors, odds of dying are 88%, way higher than COVID, blah, 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 blah. But if you take it, you're going to have the same results as Ed.
Right.
And you're like, what the fuck is going on? Dude?
Well, it's so interesting because when you're in tune with your own emotions, you'll realize when you're being manipulated by certain messaging, and you'll also realize when it's actually hard for you to resist it, right? And so I can watch a pharma ad and I can be like, yeah, I understand why this thing seems appealing to me, but it's just wrong. And I don't go to doctors that much for things that aren't wrong. So it's just not going to be something that's going to be top of mind. When I was living in Hong Kong, exposed to all of these luxury goods ads where everybody's driving a Ferrari and like there's 3 Louis Vuitton shops in like 1 block. And I'm just around all of this luxury imaging all the time. That changed the things that I wanted, over a multi-month period of time. And I was aware of the fact that it was simply being exposed to this imagery changed how I wanted to live and how I wanted to project myself to the world. And I think most people don't have that level of self-awareness. They don't realize.
That's what the media is doing with the coronavirus. That is exactly what the media is doing. They know what gets you to click. They get paid advertising. The more you click, the more they get paid. Of course, they're going to push. Every day there's a new COVID death. Of course, they're going to push it because why? They're making money. So until we defund media ads, we're always going to get bullshit. But if you can't see through this, you're choosing to be naive and not see through it.
Well, and what has really helped me to kind of go back to your rationalization point about how you manage anxiety before public speaking as you rationalize what's going on in the preparation that you've had. I always try to rationalize these situations for what are the incentives for the person presenting the information, right? Most people never think through the incentives of the people presenting them information. They either reject it because they don't trust the person, or they accept it because they trust the person. But they're not thinking like, okay, whether I trust this person or not, there's incentives on the other side. And for the media, obviously, these are corporations. Some of them are publicly traded corporations. They have quarterly earnings to report. How do they make money? 2 ways. Number 1, through subscriptions, and number 2, through ads, right? Which is done through in modern times, typically page views, right? So that's how they sell things. If they got you to click on the article, they sold something. They get 2 cents or whatever, quarter cent from an advertiser because they got you to click. And if they get 100,000 people to click, then they can make $1,000 on that article or something like that, just hypothetically. And so the more aggressive they can be, the more emotionally manipulative they can be with their messaging, the more clicks that they can get. And so when you realize that you're in a jungle, like you're in an information war zone jungle, and just like if you're walking through a jungle, you got to like duck. Some monkey's throwing a stick at you, you got to duck, right? You got some lion in the savannah. You got to like pay attention to that. That's the same thing with the modern world is information warfare.
They're 20 times better than the jungle, because the jungle, the monkey just saw you. The tiger, it's been on you for like 10 minutes, but it's just got there 10 minutes ago. They've been taking all of your data since the minute you accepted terms and conditions. They know your point. They know your trigger points, motherfuckers. Can't you guys see it? You think there's a reason? It's by accident when you think of something and you want something, it pops up in your ads. Oh, look, I was just thinking about getting myself a new car, and now I have new car ads everywhere. Bro, they know. They can track your shit. They know you. That's the problem that people are missing right now, since they're not emotionally intelligent enough, that the analytics knows your emotion way better than you do. Right. They know you so much more better. That's why people are being so manipulated right now, because this is what's happened. Our emotional intelligence got here. We got smart enough to be able to create what we created, and then it went boom. So now there's a flip where media is way, the analytics are way smarter than we are. So since they're way smarter than they are, they manipulate us down here. So we're being controlled by what we're clicking, what we're searching for. They're producing all these analytics in the back and spitting it right out. Every single person has specific ads that's geared directly towards them, and it's not by accident, motherfuckers. Right. We are being watched I'm not no conspiracy theorist. We know this. Right. You agree to the terms and the conditions of them to watch every single thing that you do. So there's a reason why your shit gets popped up, bro. There's a reason. You think that we aren't being manipulated with every fucking thing's going on. I'm not saying nothing's not real, but I'm saying if you're saying it's not being manipulated, we are naive at best.
Right, and it kind of goes back to this book I was assigned, I think, in high school, The Most Dangerous Game, written by this Brit author Conan Doyle. And the book was about hunting humans, right? And as you get older, you kind of realize that a lot of money is made in our economy from humans hunting humans effectively. And the same triggers that you'll see if you watch TV late enough, as I did when I was in high school, that people will sell fishing bait that like dances around in a way that is indefensible for the fish, right? Maybe people call it cheating. I don't really know, but like they figure out like if they can get the bait to move in a certain way, the fish are just biologically programmed to bite on it, and then you'll catch more fish.
Let me give you a better analogy. When you're hunting, a lot of hunters will put a salt block out, and they get the deer to come over, and they give it all this different type of things. They get its horns bigger, the salt block. They get, they feed the deer up. They get the deer going to the same spot all year. They just put a tree stand up. They just put a tree stand up 10 feet away. There's a reason why people pay to go on these big hunts and always come back with something.
Yeah.
Planned hunt. They put it in a cage, basically. The odds of you spending $5,000 to go on a bear hunt and not shoot a bear, there are odds you may not shoot it. It's nature. It may not happen. But they've been grooming that bear and watching him go through that same area for the last 60 months, 20 months, 30 months until it got big enough to shoot. So you could pay $10,000 to shoot the motherfucker. Dude, they're doing that to us. You see it.
Of course. And what's frightening is when you kind of see this happening politically, right? You can see certain narratives get seeded, and the way what I look for to know that this is happening is when you see common messaging from sources that don't seem to be coordinated, right? Is there's always a million different ways to describe any sort of event. And if it is described the same way by all of these various media organizations, then you know that there's some sort of coordination in messaging, which is scary because there has to be some sort of player, behind the scenes.
Yeah, there's a player behind the scene. Hey, this is great. I love this podcast. Let's do part 2.
Let's do it.
Peace.